Hello adventurers, and welcome to our list of 5 awesome hot springs near Stanley, Idaho. In this video, we will be combining the information from the last couple of videos, adding one more hot spring, and wrapping it all up into one convenient bite-sized package. We will be kicking things off with the closest spring to Stanley, which is Valley Creek Hot Springs. To get to these springs, you're going to be taking Highway 75 north and turning left on Valley Creek Road. There is a decent sized parking lot here, and the hot springs are located just on the other side of this really cool bridge. All of the hot springs on this list are beautiful, but this might have been one of the most pretty ones. From the hot springs, you will get views of majestic mountains, lush green hills, and a babbling creek. This is a really neat spot, and I can see how it would be very easy to spend an entire day here. The second stop on our list is Boat Box Hot Springs. These springs are located about 4 miles from Stanley. There is definitely not a ton of parking here, but what this spring lacks in parking, it definitely makes up for with its man-made hot tub. The tub here can hold 2 or maybe even 3 very close friends. It had to be replaced several times back in the day because in the springtime the river would swell and wash the tub away, but nowadays it's held in place by chains. If the tub is occupied when you get there, don't worry because there are also several other little pools that you can enjoy. The third stop on our list is Cove Creek Hot Spring. This spring is located about 8.3 miles from Stanley. This is the smallest spring on the list, but it does have a large parking area. To find the hot springs here, you're going to take this small trail all the way down to the side of the river. This is a smaller spring, so it wouldn't take too many people to make it feel kind of crowded, but luckily when we went, we had the entire thing to ourselves. Even though the springs here might not be anything big to write home about, this spot definitely does have its benefits. There are picnic tables here if you want to stop for lunch, and you can even camp out here. So if camping is a priority of yours, you might want to take note of this because you can't do that at several of the other hot springs on this list. Out of the 5 hot springs on our list, this is probably our least favorite. It's not that Cove Creek Hot Springs is bad, it's just that some of the other spots that we're going to be visiting are super awesome. Speaking of other hot springs on our list, let's continue on to number 4, which is Sunbeam Hot Springs. Out of all of the hot springs on our list, this one probably has the most history to it. Even though this bathhouse is the only structure that is still standing, this area was inhabited by settlers in the early to mid 1930s. One interesting fact about Sunbeam Hot Springs is that the pools here are made and maintained by volunteers. In the springtime, the flow of the river can get quite heavy and a lot of these pools get washed away. But the determination of the people who love Sunbeam Hot Springs is not washed away quite as easily, and they return every year to rebuild it. On the opposite side of the bathhouse, you'll find 2 man-made hot tubs. When we visited, they were missing the plugs in the bottom, so we couldn't get them filled up, but they were still pretty cool to check out. These springs are located only about 12 miles from Stanley, and we could easily spend an entire day here. The last spot on our list does require a bit of a disclaimer. I know that this video is supposed to be about hot springs near Stanley, and being an hour outside of the small town makes this a bit of a stretch, but Curcum Hot Springs is hands down our favorite hot spring on the list. This is the only hot spring on the list that you need to pay to get into, but I'm sure once you see it, you'll agree that it's worth the $5 to get in. And also, if you have a pass like the America the Beautiful pass, you get in for free. Out of all the hot springs on this list, we think that this one definitely has the most to offer. Steaming hot waterfalls, pools that seem like they were the perfect temperature, the clear and turquoise water of the 𝐈𝐿𝐼𝐻 River, and it even has a small cliff jump if you're looking for just a little bit more fun. The jump into the river was definitely a highlight of our visit, and it's also a great way to cool off after soaking in the hot spring. If we only had time to visit one of the springs from today's list, this would definitely be the one. If you plan on visiting any or all of the springs on this list, please be sure to practice good hot spring etiquette. Even though this might feel like a nice hot bath, it is not meant to be one, so please do not bring any soap or shampoo into the hot springs. It's also not a restroom, so be sure to take care of those types of activities outside of the pools. Please be sure to keep glass bottles and sharp items away from the pools because no one wants to step on that. A lot of these pools are clothing required, so we're going to have to get rid of those tan lines somewhere else. And obviously, last but not least, please be sure to practice leave no trace principles and leave the area better looking than when you found it. Well, that is going to do it for our list of 5 awesome hot springs near Stanley, Idaho. If you enjoy our adventures, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because those are the best things that you can do to support this channel. Check us out on Instagram at @thatadventurelife_official. And for all the information about these hot springs and other awesome things to do in Idaho, head on over to thatadventurelife.com.